Of course, I don't know about you, but I think it's unbelievable that this was actually allowed to happen. So what am I going on about then? Well, just picture this. Someone, or actually a lot of people, came over illegally from the safe country of France and then potentially either committed a crime or maybe, just maybe, the government done their job properly, caught these people, found they had no reason to be in the UK, and, in a rarity for the government, actually put them on the queue for deportation, which sounds great, doesn't it, if that was the case. But what if I was to tell you that a lot of these people then decided to sue the government because of it? But what reason could they possibly have? I'll give you two guesses, but I think you'll only need one. All thanks to Tony Blair, or perhaps Sherry Blair rather. Yes, that's right, you've got it with that clue. Human rights. But what could possibly affect their human rights? Well, according to this article, it says that foreign nationals who were locked up by the Home Office won a record amount of compensation last year, and often successfully suing on the basis the government was too slow to deport them. That's right, too slow. Not to mention at all those lefty lawyers presumably delaying things. No, that presumably is the government fault and they expect us to pay up. But just how much is it? Oh, surely it's going to be an ever so such small amount, isn't it? Unfortunately not. In the last 5 years, it says, a total of £53.2 million has been paid in compensation to 2,222 people who brought successful cases against the Home Office for illegal detention. It's just absolutely disgraceful. Remember, I'm guessing the reason for this illegal detention was because they took their time, as it says, but they shouldn't be in the country in the first place, should they? Presumably. It's just absolutely disgraceful that they should be able to do that if they weren't allowed to be here. And the audacity of it just leaves me so fuming. It's just absolutely outrageous, isn't it? Even says here, look, that often the claimants manage to use human rights legislation to help win their cases, which are being settled with average payouts of almost £25,000, which is about, I don't know, a year's salary or maybe a year and a half salary for quite a lot of people out there. And obviously these guys, they just get it because I'm guessing they were holed up in five-star hotels just a little bit too long, maybe. The Home Office can detain people, it says, that it's trying to deport, but it can only keep them locked up for what lawyers state is a reasonable period. So if the case drags on for too long, it says they can claim cash compensation. And lawyers who pick the cases up on a no-win, no-fee basis say the payouts can be boosted if guards are too severe and use equipment like handcuffs. Presumably, and admittedly, I could be wrong, but if they're all detained within this certain building, or a barge like the Bippy Stockholm or whatever, I'm guessing the only reason why guards would need to use handcuffs is because if a certain person was violent or was trying to attack another individual or something like that, I'm guessing, or property maybe, and therefore that use more than likely would be justified, presumably. But could it be that they're not even allowed to do that and just have to let the people therefore damage anything they like or do anything they like to other people, which would just be absolutely disgraceful, wouldn't it? And therefore could actually lead to crime itself, couldn't it? And experts say that the shock factor, as they like to call it, of being detained means just the first day in custody can be worth as much as £1,000 to somebody who brings a successful case. Remember, these guys are set for deportation and therefore means they're either committed a crime here and therefore have to go back presumably to the safe country of France, or they shouldn't have even been here in the first place. And so what sort of shock factor, as they like to call it, would it be to know that after you have done those things that yes, you should be sent back to the safe country of France from where they came? It just strikes me as a bit strange how they'd be shocked about it, but I guess that's just me, eh? These people, it says, will have been held at immigration detention centres, which are run like jails, and they are meant to be used as a holding facility before a person is either deported or allowed to stay legally within the UK. But many of the payouts were made to foreign criminals who successfully fought against a government-backed application to deport them. This is where all the lefty lawyers are unfortunately not switching on their brain cells. If someone's committed a horrible crime here against one of our citizens or property or whatever, and this person shouldn't have even been in the country in the first place, what right do they then have to stay? Like that guy with the hook a few years ago. I mean, it took us ages for him to be deported, didn't it? And from what I remember, he was a bit of a terrorist himself, wasn't it? I just can't see the logic behind it, why they're even allowed to stay in the first place if they've done those things, let alone claim compensation. It's just absolutely disgraceful, isn't it? It just makes me wonder if all those people who are put in prison because they put a nasty post on Facebook, if they'll soon be able to claim compensation, because something like that presumably is more worthwhile of compensation than these guys, surely, eh? Others, though, who won compensation were people that the government were trying to deport under immigration laws, but who it was later found out that should have been allowed to stay in the UK. Well, I guess that you can say is justifiable, that if they were allowed to be here, then yes, they shouldn't have been locked up. But for the other people, there's just no excuse for it, is there? And Keir Starmer, I know he kind of likes all the, should we call them future Labour voters, but surely he should see that this needs to be sorted out, eh? And get this, in the last 5 years, the number of total successful cases for illegal detention brought against the Home Office has risen from just 312 to 736, while the total in compensation has soared from 8.2 million to the last year's total of £16.1 million. So of course that number is double, and the total cases is more than double. It just makes you wonder how much it will be in another 5 years, doesn't it? When, let's face it, with all the illegal boat people coming here from the safe country of France continues to increase more and moreover, I'm guessing that will increase or balloon a lot more than that. And listen to this case. In 2017, career criminal Abdul Mohammed, then aged 39, was awarded almost £80,000 after the Home Office admitted his illegal detention. But what were the circumstances around it, I hear you ask? Well, he had been granted asylum status in the UK, but after committing a string of crimes, he was held in a detention centre for a total of 441 days in 3 separate periods as office officials tried to deport him. Well, what's wrong with that? Surely after committing a load of crimes, even if he's been granted asylum status, then shouldn't he be sent back to the safe country of France? Because even though admittedly he has been granted asylum, he's still committed a string of crimes. And of course, after using human rights legislation to successfully fight his deportation, he then won a payment on the basis that he was locked up for too long whilst the process dragged on. It's just balmy, isn't it, that they're even allowed to do that in the first place. In fact, what's next? Will they soon be allowed to claim compensation because they've been waiting in a doctor's queue for so long or something like that, eh? The Home Office revealed, though, its biggest settlement it made for illegal deportation was a payout for, oh my God, £241,000, while in recent years there had also been made payouts for £190,000, £156,000 and £140,000. Each one of them could get you at least a small terrace in many areas, I'm guessing. Which, remember, if they bought that, they wouldn't have to pay a mortgage at all. That is, of course, unless the government lets them live there for free anyway. In quite a lot of cases, I'm guessing. And Ulf Murphy, the chairman of Migration Watch, has kind of hit the nail on the head. He said, these are the consequences of losing control of our immigration and asylum system. Ultimately, billions of pounds of British taxpayers' money is going on people who force their way into the country, which could be better spent on the growing needs of citizens of this country. And sadly, as things are, it can only get worse. And what the Home Office said about it then? Well, unfortunately, the Home Office, they declined to comment. Well, there's no surprise there, is there? Perhaps they need their spinning wheels to try and spin this into a way to make us all feel bad, no doubt, eh?